after reading 1 Thessalonians 4 and seeing that there is an encouragement in the promise of Jesus' return that is supposed to affect the way we live as we wait, I began to become convicted. The more I read it, the more convicted I got of the fact that Jesus' return has rarely affected how I live. Rarely have I changed how I live. Rarely have I sat down and said, I have a decision to make. How does Jesus' return inform this decision? And I'm not talking about that worldly idea of, Jesus is coming, look busy. I mean the reality that if he's coming, how should I be living? And the more I thought about it, most often when I actually do think about Jesus' return over the course of my life, my thought has not been come quickly, but my thoughts have been, I sure hope he doesn't come until this happens, or until that happens. When I was younger, I didn't want him to come until I got married. And then after I got married, I didn't want him to come until I got to be a pastor. And then now I wanted to see my kids grow up. Don't come until I get what I want. I'm talking to me, and if it affects you, that's great. But just know there's no judgment. How could any of those things be more important than seeing Jesus? Right? How could any of those things be more important to my heart, to my life, to my desires than seeing Jesus? That's part of why I've started changing the way that I pray. I don't pray that God fulfill the desires of my heart. I pray that I fulfill the desires of His. Because His heart has to be better than mine. His ways are higher. His thoughts are higher. So rather than me telling God what I want Him to do in my life, I've started saying, show me how to accomplish what you desire. Show me how to surrender so that you can have your way. Because your way is always going to be better than mine. Thank God that we can tell Him the desires of our heart, but when do we yield to the desires of His? When do we thirst for His ways, thirst for His desires, thirst for His will? When do we trust Him enough to say, you know what? I'm laying down what I've always wanted because I want you. Amen. And I want what you want more than any of those other things. The more I've thought about it and prayed about it, the more I've started to see that a big part of the problem is that I just don't believe that I or we have a very good grasp on what the return of Jesus really means. So let me ask you tonight, I'm not going to ask you for your answers, just going to ask you to think about it. What's your first thought when somebody talks about the return of Jesus?